The seven seeds are my creation of a holonomic human development model. Hi, my name is Xian Prem. Yeah, what does it actually mean, a holonomic human development model? Holonomic, if you look that up, it's basically freedom, personal freedom within a bigger system of freedom. And I experience this life and this body more as like orbits within orbits. So some call it a hologram, and that's a different perspective where I see the body and outer reality of matter dissolving into particles, and then everything becomes lucid. So that's what I would call a hologram. And the seven seeds model is more from a perspective of orbits within orbits that are circulating within and around the system, and basically patterns of light. So I'm not saying one is more correct than the other. It's just a different level or realm of consciousness to tap into. Holonomic in that way of that personal freedom, I think it's just really important that we see that we have the freedom to create our own way of being, that we aren't stuck with, oh, this is just who I am, blank, 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 because I grew up blank, 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 but that we have a choice to change quite a lot within the system of who we believe we are, that there are quite a lot of possibilities of transformational change. And that's the freedom within that holonomic system. Because when you start moving parts around, moving consciousness around, moving your ideas of who you are around, moving your memories around, your whole perspective of self changes. And your outer reality might start changing. When I was 17 and I was suddenly a foreign exchange student in a different country, I realized that my outer pattern of my outer life, of types of friendships and time by myself and activities, suddenly was just a mirrored way of my time in my country of origin. All I had changed was the outer setting. So the names of the people were different, and the scenery looked a bit different, but my whole life pretty much was the same. So, and that was this aha moment that it doesn't really matter if we just start fresh in a way, if we keep taking ourselves with us. So the aha moment was really, if I wanted my outer life to change, and back then I was more of a loner and quite hermit-like. I wanted to have more friends. I realized that I needed to change within and be more outgoing and open up in order for my outer life to change. And I mean, it sounds quite reasonable if I share it this way. Of course, that's what needs to happen. But my whole perspective of self, where I felt more like, oh, this is how people treat me, completely shifted into who do I need to be to have the people around me that I want around me, to have the types of friendship that I want to be, and to relate to my outer reality the way I really want to relate to, that it really it's about me to change. And that took me onto a very long journey of trying to twist little things in my behavior around people and see how people would respond differently to me, and how I would be, as a teenager, be more or less included than before. So that was quite an experiment, especially as a teenager, to start connecting with people in different ways than I had done so far. Yeah, take a moment to just take that in. So the way I handled it already back then was to watch other people, how they would relate. Since my model of relating seemingly wasn't making me as happy as I wanted to be, I then watched other people, how they were behaving towards each other, how they were relating with each other, what were the wordings, the phrases they would use. And then I started copying. And then I had conversations and started asking for feedback. So I basically started a little bit of a mentorship quest there. Back then at work, just with colleagues, so it wasn't an official mentorship. But I asked the ones that were older than me and watched them of how are they relating to others and what is helping them to relate in a way that seemed more effective to where I wanted to be. So yeah, I started making compliments whenever it was authentic and honest, and watched especially women really smile and light up, and that brought a connection with itself. So bringing a positive message to someone really supported them to feel better about themselves, and it also supported the connection between us. So I really started enjoying doing that, and did that quite a lot. But what I'm pointing to, if you feel unhappy and kind of stuck with who you are, that it might be good to look outside of you and see what are other models of behavior, other models of relating, and maybe even other models of dress codes, and see how, if you take that on, how that affects how you feel about yourself, how that affects how other people relate to you. So it's an option to look outside of yourself and see, how do other people do that? And maybe I can learn from them and experiment with it. And it doesn't mean that you need to take it on for the rest of your life. It just means it's an experiment. You take it on and see how it fits for you, and then either you keep it or you throw it out. So a more intense example was another decade later when I moved to India, and I'm born in Germany, so I came with my German set of cleanliness and punctuality, and was suddenly in India where people weren't as clean and weren't punctual at all. They had a different relationship to time. So for a while I was kind of like, they're odd, they don't do it the right way. Until my mind again switched and went, oh, maybe it's another possibility. So instead of projecting my cultural understanding of how things and behavior should be, and they are doing it all in a way I don't like it, to go like, oh, maybe it's another possibility. Maybe there's something there that I can experiment with and learn from. Maybe a model I can take on. So the more I watch then, in my case, Indian women, how they were relating, how they were behaving, what time of day would they go out, what time of day would they stay home, how would they treat men they don't know, how would they behave out in the market. So watching them and then having lots and lots of conversations about their cultural perspective and their perspective of gender, their perspective of communication, I started learning a lot. So I started learning that punctuality didn't happen because being in the moment and being with family was so much more important. So people were more important than getting tasks done. And in Germany, it's all about getting tasks done, as you can imagine. So in India, people were way more important. Family was more important. And they didn't understand the German perspective of, why do they spend so much time cleaning if I can spend time with my kids? So just take that in. So again, there are other options out there of how life could be lived, how we can relate to each other. There are different ways of being. And just because, oh, this is who I am, doesn't mean I need to stay this way. And it doesn't mean you need to let go of all of you are, but just take in the possibility of, for example, it's looking at highly successful people. It's like, how are they doing that? Can I take on a little bit of how they are doing it? Can I copy some parts of it? So that's where change starts to happen. The opening for transformation is that first inner reflection of, oh, there's a possibility for change within. Just that opening for change, like opening to the opportunity. And then looking outside of you of like, how are other people around you? And even further, how are other cultures, other cultural concepts handling things? So back to India, I realized that people were really settled in their hearts. Like that's just the notion that people are more important. Then I also noticed about communication that there was a very subtle communication happening below the belt. So there, someone might smile at me, but on another level, I felt pushed away, and they were kind of telling me the conversation is done, but they didn't dare saying it because in India, people don't like to say no. Very fascinating. But then actually they say no in all these other ways that are very subtle, and you have to like notice the keys to that. So again, that was very fascinating. The more I tuned into that subtle level of there's this other below the belt language that's either pulling me in or pushing me away and communicating something different than the words would communicate. So I started paying way more attention to this, what I would call more energetic language in the Indian system of chakras. You might even say communication on a chakra level. That's how I experienced it, but that's a whole nother topic of philosophy. So just tuning into the energetics of communication, of what's really happening under the belt. Like, how do you feel being around someone? Are they actually communicating something else than the words are communicating? And out in the West, people might not be aware of that they're putting out something else under the belt than by words. They might not have that self-awareness. In India, my experience was they very well knew and very consciously put that out there. Because the moment I started experimenting with it and then communicating on that level, life became very different. And I really noticed that when I went for a trip to London. I went to the hotel and then suddenly realized, oh, I have to use my voice again. I have to actually tell the front desk, I have a reservation here. I couldn't just like pull over the paper and kind of do my energetic little thing, saying hello in this like non-verbal ways. So they only needed that, oh, good morning, sir, and here's my reservation. So they needed the words again. But then I went into a mobile store for getting a SIM card, and there was a Punjabi working there, so someone from India. And then I could switch over again on the chakra level communication of like saying hi on this other level, while as a woman towards a man in that cultural relationship, I would stay very close and I wouldn't smile, just to indicate that I'm not interested in anything else but a business connection. But then on this other energetic level, I would be open, and then my communication would go into bargaining. And so there was this whole other way happening of relating to each other, honoring each other in business, on this like energetic opening and closing that was happening there. And it's actually a lot of fun if you start doing that. And you can actually start playing by it just by becoming aware of what's your physical posture, like even just feeling under your gut, putting your hand there. What's that saying? So are you maybe putting something else out through your physical posture, through something that's under the belt, or either your facial expression that's different or even opposite to your words? And start becoming aware of the whole picture of you. Are you communicating the same thing on different levels? And if not, what's going on? So like as my India example, that was happening very consciously. You would give people a smile and be very friendly, while under the belt go like, it's time to complete this and let's go. So being friendly, but energetically just indicating something different. So that's a very conscious way of using it. But are you maybe doing it unconsciously, and there is in situations where you don't want to be with, your body gets tense, your belly says no, you really want to be out of there, the other person, because most Westerners don't notice that necessarily consciously, or they'll probably notice they feel uncomfortable, but they don't respond to it because they're unconscious of it. So you keep continuing the conversation and smiling, but actually you really want to be out of there. So something like that, start noticing these moments, start noticing what's actually happening in your physical system at first, because often if you don't pay attention to the energetics, then we actually start getting more tense, or we might have stomach cramps, or other things might happen in our body that are not in alignment with who we really want to be, who we are, what we want to express. So just start noticing physical systems, physical symptoms, or physical posture that might be different than what you're expressing by words. So you might start noticing what's really going on for you. I just noticed that in the West, we often put ourselves into situations, and often it's for a job, where we don't really want to be in. And can we become more conscious of that? And then just make conscious choices. So if it's for a job and you have a conversation that you don't feel comfortable with, that you do not feel comfortable with, but you know you have to be in it, then just become aware of it, still relax and have the conversation, but just notice. So it's all about noticing again, that noticing, that awareness. That's another opening. So there is the personal choice. I'm willing to open and have an opportunity for change, but then there's also the noticing of like, oh, that's what's really going on. And when I moved to the US, I really found this sweet middle spot between India and the US, where people were in a way more civilized, coming from European a sense. But at the same time, I just love the international multicultural mix that's in this country. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit from all of it. And the American culture, that's its own culture, even though it's a blend, it has created its own signature. The ease of letting go, the ease of not taking things too serious. So I feel like there are more options I can tap into. I'm taking things seriously and I'm very committed. And I can also just like, oh, I let go. Or, well, today I'm coming late. So it's not the all or nothing that's in the huge contrast between India and Germany. But I have a little bit more playground, so to say, in this country due to the multicultural, multinational blend that's there. And with American culture in its own, sure, okay, I can let things go, I can be more at ease. But again, I caution to really become aware of what's really going on. Are you doing it consciously? Are you actually playing? Are you making conscious choices, or are you just being run by what's socially accepted just for you to feel loved? So feeling loved is just another big topic there, where that might be the reason why we are not in alignment within ourselves. And let me step back here and just explain a little bit more about the 17th model, where basically seed one is the body. And I just started talking a bit more about the body and becoming aware of the body, of just how often what we are saying and what our body expresses isn't the same. So just creating awareness around the body that's really a big first steps, and that's why I call it the first seed, the ground of all. And to me, it's even more than our physical body. It's also the body of Earth and how we relate to Earth. And we'll go there later. But just becoming aware of the body. So of this somatic noticing, somatic awareness. And I do offer somatic coaching where I consciously guide clients into that, just paying attention to what's actually happening in the body, because there's so much wisdom. And where there's about tension, inner tension, just becoming aware of the tensions that are there and seeing what are the knots that have been created that might not need to be there anymore. And can we actually shift our attention to something more joyful? And then body parts where there's ease. And just let that settle again. So again, there's a choice option. We can focus on what is tense, or we can focus on where there is ease. So with the body, there are two opportunities here. And sometimes it's useful to focus on where is tension, looking into where's the source of that tension. Maybe there's a situation, a conversation that has never really been resolved, and so there's the tension in the body. It's kind of like a tug of war within our own system. So, and then it's good to see where did it start, and then often, I have these aha moments like, oh, okay, that's where it's coming from, and then I can maybe resolve that, and then the body can follow and relax. So sometimes it's just like there might be a lot of tension, especially now where the world is in such tumult and our surrounding has a lot of tension. So at least I tend to take on some of that tension from my surrounding. And in those cases, it's just really useful to look into where there's ease in my body. And then I can kind of expand that ease into the rest of my body that might have taken on tension. And that's also true, not just for the collective trauma we are in, but also for personal trauma like injuries. So if there's one body part that's really in pain due to an injury, then to look into, oh, what are the other body parts that actually feel ease right now? Can I focus there? Can I allow that ease to expand into the rest of my body so that we may find joy in our own system at times where there's trauma due to a personal situation like an injury or an outer collective situation like right now. So that's really important, being able, knowing the choice to look into where there's tension in my surrounding and my own body that I'm picking up or creating, and then also to see where there's ease in my body, so I can just look both ways. So that's a really, really important opportunity to know about in your own system. Yeah, then I had talked about energetics, and that's really my seed of the 7 seeds, 6, which I call synchronicity, of being aware of the energetics that are there all the time in the field. And then it feels synchronistic that your best friend suddenly calls you up the moment you thought of him. It suddenly feels synchronistic that you meet a person who becomes your new landlord when you were looking for a new home. So these moments, just paying attention to the energetics that are happening in between us, and there was being more open to synchronistic moments. And again, it's all about awareness, becoming aware of them. So what is it that inside of us we put out as a goal, as a setting, as an intention, so that then the universe can respond to us, but also that we can actually notice. So we might have still met the same person, but we might have never mentioned that we're looking for a new home to rent. And so we might have missed out on the moment because that type of conversation would not have come up, even though you actually met the person. And then it would not have been a synchronistic moment that we had become aware of. So it's really useful to know what is it inside of your system, what is it that you're putting out consciously or unconsciously, making it more conscious, and then becoming more aware of your surrounding. And then you can start Just start with noticing the energetics of your own system. What are you putting out? What's coming in? What's around you? Are you tense and have an inside, no, I don't want to be left alone? And then suddenly you wonder why nobody calls you. Just become aware of that. And maybe you need alone time and you're very grateful for that. So, but then maybe there's a time when you want to come out of your cocoon again, it's done and still nobody calls. And then you have to recheck, oh, I'm still putting out that big no into my field. No wonder no one calls me. I have to change that. I have to change what I'm putting out into the field, and I have to put out now the opening. I'm available again. And then maybe it also takes picking up the phone and actually reaching out. So that would be my seed 4, is that connection to others. So we can wait for others to show us love, or we can actually reach out and, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to be in the world. And to me, this is really true for relationships, for connection with other people, for connection with your surrounding. To if you want a hug, you go out and give a hug. I mean, right now you have to ask if it's appropriate and the person has done all the precautions, and some people might not do that, but as with a family member, for example. So there's a giving and receiving on both ends. And if you feel like, oh, somebody doesn't like you, well, maybe you should really check into it. It might just be an inner feeling, or it might be that they are pulled in at that time, or it might be that you went through a difficult phase and it was too much for them to be around you. Maybe they really don't like you, but maybe there are all these other factors, and you just have to find out. So, and then maybe if you again change your intention, your energetic field from, oh, I want to be left alone, to I'm available, then again, people might actually respond differently to you. So that would be my seed 4 of connection. And there's much more to that, of opening the heart into compassion, into forgiveness, and into gratitude. Just that immense heart opening of unconditional love that in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali is called a shortcut into enlightenment. So I'll leave you there with opening your heart, being available for love, being available to people, especially now, and just putting out that opening of you are available for giving and receiving love, and see what happens. And you might want to pick up the phone and actually share your love with someone.